this point in my life, I feel like giving myself and facilitating, like giving myself permission to learn, which is permission to play, and facilitating that in others. I mean, I don't think anybody really gives another person the permission, but to be a facilitator of that spirit of yes, because then otherwise I think it's very difficult to learn. I think it's very difficult to make mistakes because then we fear doing it wrong. And if we're afraid of doing it wrong, then the game is over.
That was Carrie Owerko. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Yogi Misfit Sessions. I am Danny Pamploon, and I am your host. It's session 130 today, and the lovely Carrie Owerko was on the show. I have been following her on Instagram for quite a while, and Rocky, who y'all know from the Dharma Dudes episodes that we do, is also really great friends with her and has spoke really highly about her. And she is she was all that and a bag of chips on the show. She's got such a beautiful, playful energy. Carrie is she's a badass in the sense that she knows her stuff. And she also really just brings a lot of joy into practicing. She gets super playful and thinks really outside of the box within movement itself, which I think is pretty nice. Coming from an Ashtanga background with everything was really diligent and it was only this way. She really encourages everyone to express their bodies in so many different ways. She's also given us a free gift. She's got an online platform called Playground, and she's giving people 10% off. So if you use the code at her website and you use Playful10, you get a 10% discount off any of her subscriptions. Again, I would recommend all of y'all listening to the show to go check her out on her Instagram because she's really, really, really inspiring, and it'll get you to think outside of the box in all of your movements. Of course, this goes without saying, but I appreciate y'all supporting the show. Leaving your reviews on iTunes helps, and you can always check out the show support page as well. The links are in the notes. Without further ado, here goes session 130 with Carrie Owerko. Hey, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Danny.
How's it going? How's New York?
New York is hot. It's hot and humid right now, but things are opening up slowly, and the city feels like in terms of, say, COVID or something, we're moving in a much better direction than it looks like the rest of the country. So, gosh.
We just got told in California that things are shutting down. San Francisco has been pretty much just shut down for a while, but we just got told today, California, that they're closing off a bunch of stuff that had just reopened in the last few weeks. So it definitely feels like a regression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of saying this before we hit record. One, I'm glad that we get to actually be here with no jackhammering in the background.
Me too.
And Carrie, I feel like Rocky and I do the monthly podcast, and so I found you through Rocky, and he's, I've heard your name for quite a bit, and then I started following you on Instagram, and I started following you on Yoga International as well, and so I feel like I kind of know you from a distance, but I'm really excited to talk to you firsthand and hear your story. And I don't know if you hear this a lot, but even in the way that you speak, in your cadence and in your tone, there's just so much joy in what you offer to a practice. It's when I look at you and when I see you teach, I'm like, she's having so much fun.
That's my mission.
So how did I know you were an Iyengar teacher for quite a while, correct?
Yes.
How did it all? Let's give a little rundown of like your actual yoga journey and then how you became you're like the queen of play.
Well, that's really a huge compliment because I just believe that play is such an important part of life for everyone, no matter what age we are. And then I think sometimes it just gets dismissed as something frivolous. And I just, even though it's fun, it's just so much a part of our lives. It may not be, but I think if we really look at, the times when we're when we're most at ease, when there's contentment in our lives, that we can look and see that there are play behaviors. And so I just think it's so important for the health of our brain, our body, and our relationships. So, I'm a huge play inquirer. I'm always trying to learn about it because I'm actually working on a book about it. So
Okay.
all question marks, even though the more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know, except that I feel that there is just in, all of my explorations over the years, that this is something significant.
Play is also one of the major components in connection.
Absolutely.
Play, vulnerability, and oh my God, there's one more. Play, vulnerability, and touch. Those are like the three components to connection.
Yeah. And I think it's, so going back to the question of the yoga, like I was in theater. I studied it in college, and that was my first love was theater and dance when I was a kid, which is play. I mean, it's just so funny when you think about it, because I remember so vividly being, I think I was in fifth grade. Well, actually my first experience just falling in love with movement was like as a 3-year-old, and dancing and being in a dance recital, and just having those kind of experiences where you feel like you're absolutely in the right place doing the thing you're supposed to do.
For sure.
Being just a toddler and going, this is it, I'm like, then and then in fifth grade there was because I grew up in a really small town in New Mexico, in rural New Mexico in the mountains, and there wasn't a lot of dance or theater. There was a local dance teacher, and that was exposure to that. And then because there was this beautiful little theater in town, and the little town that I grew up in was on there was a railroad that went through town, like the Santa Fe Railroad, which linked Chicago to like Los Angeles, and it goes with that was a stop on that really famous path. And so and Route 66 as well. And so this little town that I grew up in happened to have a very beautiful theater in the town that had been a part of the vaudeville circuit. And it was just like this beautiful jewel box theater. And then there was this, group of, 4 kind of kooky, artistic, brilliant, a music teacher, a couple theater people, and a movement person. And they wanted to, they traveled through the town. They saw this theater, they saw this old hotel, and they're like, we're going to start an arts like school for young people. They had this dream, and they did it for a few years until it just seemed like the town was, it's like what is it? The NRA has like a headquarters not far away. Like culturally, it wasn't a great fit, but those couple years that they were there, and I fell in love. Like I thought this is, it was just magic, and they opened my mind and my heart to something that that I've never forgotten. I mean, to this day, I watch musical theater at night, for entertainment. So I just I love it. And that was what I studied. And that was, I worked professionally in the theater and worked a lot in improvisational theater. That's where Rocky and I also had a connection, because he came to my workshop in LA, and then we had this conversation about theater improv and story theater. And that, I just think that is absolutely the most brilliant work. This improvisational theater of Viola Spolin and Keith Johnstone. It was really the beginning of, say, Second City, those techniques.
I was a thespian in high school. I get it.
I love theater.
It was actually the first thing I lettered in high school was theater. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm telling everyone my deep, dark secret. But the first thing I lettered in was theater. Do you remember the first thing you started?
It would have been, the first show would have been, that I starred in.
Or that you were in, I should say.
That I was in. Well, when I was a kid, it was, there was like a Christmas Carol. We did a musical version of a Christmas Carol when I was like 10 years old. And I got really into it. There was like that. I'm playing one of the, Ebenezer Scrooges, like somebody that he, loved, and the whole thing. But he was. There was a falling out because he was so greedy, and I remember just feeling like I was this person. It's those times when you just go, that getting lost in a really good way. Of course, that
for sure.
But you let yourself go in 100%, and that is the thing that makes it so thrilling and indescribable. Honestly, it's just it's a feeling. It's a place where the whole organism, I think, in a way, comes to just an integrated play state. It's a true play state.
And this was this is your introduction into, okay, this is it starts to become ingrained in you. When you started, yoga, I would say, Iyengar isn't very
totally. Yeah, it was so funny because I know, and so many people they ask me this, and I get it because. And it's fun.
It's the opposite of play, Carrie.
It's always the opposite. So I was working with this theater company, the Irondale Ensemble, and was with them for about 6 years. And it was a great experience. I mean, we worked out at Rikers Island, we in the prison population, and we're also in the New York City public schools and toured all over the world. But then when I decided, I was at Irondale, and I thought, I'm really interested in the movement. The movement piece became more and more fascinating to me. We had a great choreographer when I was with the company. Her name is Annie B. Parsons, and she's gone on to create something called Big Dance Theater, which does amazing work. And Annie B. she just reignited my love of, interesting movement, not just kind of classical dance, which I studied, but not in depth. I was just a mover, and Anna B, just her work was so interesting, and it just sparked that desire to really go much deeper with the study of movement. So I left the company to study movement analysis at the Laban Institute. And when I was studying at the Laban Institute of Movement Studies in New York City is when I just started doing yoga because I thought, that would be, that I want to practice, I want to daily practice. And right from the beginning, like from my first yoga class, I went to it to have a practice. I liked the ritual. I always had a type of practice. And for some reason, I don't know, I was into Indian theater for a while. I thought yoga, and so
why not?
Why not, right? I took some classes at Jiva Mukti, and they seemed like really fun. And it was actually the Jiva Mukti people. So I was taking class there. I was studying at the Laban Institute. And then after I got out of school, I was just, I really enjoyed my yoga practice. I felt like that was a place where I could really put different pieces together. In the beginning, that's what it was for me. It wasn't, it was a self-directed practice from day one. I went to classes, but I didn't just come home and repeat what I learned in the class. I might repeat some things, but then I was exploring, and the practice was this place for me to try to put the different pieces together. And I was taking these classes at Jiva Mukti and other studios. I tried it all. It was early yoga time in New York, so there weren't a lot of choices. Sure. It was in the late 80s, early to mid 90s, before yoga really exploded. So there weren't studios on every block like we have now, or did. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, did.
And,
totally.
And it will change, right? I mean, it's just, but one of the teachers at Jiva Mukti was like, because I would ask questions, after the class, I would ask questions about, because I'd studied movement analysis. So I'm like, about such and such pose, and I, because we just were blowing through all these different poses. And I thought, well, there's got to be more to it than just making the shape, So right. I would ask these questions, and the teachers, they were like, you know what, you should try a class you should try an Iyengar class. That might be something that you would like, because they love that kind of thing, And so, I did. I tried an Iyengar class, and and it was, I, of course, in my arrogance, went to a class that wasn't basic and, was just sort of swimming in a sea of yoga belts. There were so many, and, the props and things. But I was very curious about the creativity of the teacher, because this teacher was, seemed extraordinarily creative compared to the set sequence that I seemed to be doing in the, more of the flow class, where it was pretty predictable. Right. And then here was this place where they were just like, what the hell is that? And so I liked that. I liked the clarity of the instruction. I appreciated it. I think especially because maybe at that time in my life, I just appreciated that structure. Maybe I needed that structure at that time. Yeah. And then now, at this point when I can reflect on the people that I was first, the teachers of Iyengar yoga that I was first really attracted to, they were not, and I was just speaking about this with another podcast host, they were not like really very traditional. They were deeply enmeshed in the method, but they were also kind of rebels. Mm-hmm. And when I look back on that, like one of them isn't even in the method anymore, and she's really brilliant, that, from early on, what I really liked was this exploration, the kind of what was playful, that a lot of experimentation, a lot of let's try this, let's try that, and, inquiry-based explorations. That wasn't just, let's do this thing the way Guruji said.
Right.
But then, I went down the rabbit hole, man, like you do sometimes with things, and I liked that there was a community, there was a real sense of community, actually. And I think that was another thing that I probably missed after leaving the theater, because, from that, theater is a huge, when you work in a company or you work on a show, you're all in for that period. And there's
and you're stuck together like and everybody.
Right. And there's an intensity to it that it's difficult when you strike the set, right, at the end. Yeah. There's sometimes you're like happy it's over, maybe you didn't like the show, there's just this thing where it ends, and it ends, like it really ends. And that, and so when I wasn't with the company anymore, and I'd gone back to school, and I was sort of, I was teaching, and I think I wanted community, and here was this place that really had that. And even though there were elements to the community over time, it changed. Iyengar yoga, when I first started, it was not, I think they had just started certification process. So it had just, they began assessments then. It was early, those kind of early-ish days. I waited a little while before I started doing assessments, but then it got more and more regimented, and not, I don't want to say, and hierarchical. It just did. It just got a lot more hierarchical. There was a kind of orthodoxy that I don't remember experiencing early on. And that was not what I signed up for. It was BKS Iyengar when I started, and then somewhere along the line he became Guruji, and they're just the way things change and evolve. But I was in it, at that point, and I was climbing the ranks, and there's a momentum to that, maybe, and I think it wasn't until I had a break after getting like my first senior certificate that I had time before I would do, there wasn't another exam to take. And I just started, I don't know, it was like 4 years where I was teaching and practicing, of course, but I really wasn't on that assessment. There's so many levels in Iyengar yoga. It's just insane, but I wasn't on that. I wasn't like going for the next level. So then all of a sudden I'm like, well, what am I doing if somebody isn't telling me what to do and telling me the next syllabus to work on and the next philosophy to read? And that's when I just, I mean, it started a little bit earlier where I was kind of beginning to question, why am I doing this? And,
Right.
in
Well,
this,
almost like it's the fun. It's for me. What I did Ashtanga for quite a while, and
yeah,
then I just at some point, very similar. Like I needed the discipline, and I know I needed someone to tell me what to do, and I know I needed to like achieve something, but then it just wasn't fun anymore. Like then I just wasn't having a good time, and I would just. I distinctly remember my last Ashtanga class, my unled primary class, and I remember getting ready to wrap up, and I didn't even finish the poses because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like it didn't, there was no more joy in it for me, where I had
yeah,
fun playing around in the poses and getting to learn about myself in the poses. And, even like, everything that goes with it, you get it. But it just lost its thing. And then I actually took a whole break from yoga. I had to like step away from it because it just like, it was that thing I had to go do. And then,
yeah,
I
and
kind of,
that is not play. Like that. That is like if we go back to you asked about play.
yeah,
Play is voluntary. Play
yeah,
is not something that you quote unquote have to do. And we don't, that's the thing. Like I get it because I think that the discipline is great. And I do think one can have discipline like a deliberate practice,
hmm,
with how that's often defined as goal oriented and like, with measurable, with a metric, where
hmm,
you're really
hmm,
like looking at things and working on, dialing it in and,
right,
going for your goal.
right,
But,
yeah,
but without play, like if it's only that, maybe some people are fine working like that, but that has never been, first of all, I think one can easily burn out and
mhm,
you, like you said, you lose the joy. There
mhm,
isn't that intrinsic motivation. I mean, discipline is just you do it, right? You do it. You're not waiting to be motivated to do it. But underneath that, I still believe, like, I mean, I am intrinsically motivated to practice because I enjoy it. I
right.
I do. I enjoy it. I feel better afterwards. I feel better like a few minutes into it. I'm like, it's like coming home. But it wasn't that like I could feel in myself when
Mhm.
I was doing all these assessments and stuff that I had to work at the joy, Danny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
and
understand.
that felt a little bit like it took that piece of time when I was off the wheel, the hamster wheel, if you will, to
Yeah.
kind of go to really say why, just start questioning everything, like everything, and sit with that and breathe with that and play with that, be with that, not say, it's like the improvisation. It'd be like, yes, and I don't have to say no to all of this, but I've got to start saying yes to things because for a while, Iyengar yoga did kind of feel like the yoga of no.
Yeah. Yeah, what I find, like I was just saying, like when I mean I was laughing about it, but when I read your story where I was like, she did what? Like it's almost, I mean, and same for me. And now I'm and maybe that is why we went to the play. We went and learned all the rules so that we could break them more enjoyably.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Na, na,
actually,
na, 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 na.
yeah. It's like an improvisation. There is a kind of I love the tenets of improv or story theater. Yes, and is one of them. And,
Yes, and yeah.
I love that. It really, that when you, in a scene or even a dance, like when you adhere to that idea so that you're not rejecting an idea because then there's control. Then there's that part of ourselves that wants to control the outcome. And we know that the part of a creative endeavor is it is a controlled abandon. There's
Mhm,
abandon there, and that whatever the beautiful constraint is that there's a game, right?
mhm.
There's a structure, but you know that within that, the whole point of that is so that you can let some part of your brain go off the leash,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah. No.
and that like idea. I remember one of the tenants was like respect, not revere. And that really, I think that's, and I got in I wrote about that in an essay a while back, like like several years ago, and there were some people in my community, in the Iyengar community. I'm not so much of a part of it anymore, but who really took issue with what I said, because but I do feel that when you respect something, instead of when we revere it, we take it or a person. Okay, that would be the example, like a teacher. When they're revered, they stop being human, and that's not fair. Do you know?
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
fair. And so the beauty in improvisation, of this idea that you're respecting the form and you're respecting the game, but we're giving it space to, we can let ourselves really, kind of out of respect, almost, turn it upside down and inside out, and and treat it like clay, because we know we're not going to be able to destroy this thing. It's so much bigger than us. And it's and that's the magic, is that you're really, we're surrendering some piece of control, so that something that is much larger than us and wilder than us, can emerge. And that,
Go ahead.
no, that's it.
You've done such a great job, and I mean, I'm going to say this statement, but I feel, Carrie, as I look at what you are doing, and as I watch, and this is obviously just on the world of Instagram and some online platforms as well, but I feel like you have really, you've influenced the way that people are playing with different yoga practices. I see a lot of teachers that have, a lot of teachers that follow you that I mean, they've completely shifted from like the box of vinyasa into like, let's turn this into a thing. What would you call what you're doing? I mean, it's movement, right? And who's to say, the whole conversation of like, what's yoga and not yoga? I don't want to have that, but like, what do you describe what you do? When I look at you, I'm like, she's just just an adult having a great time. Like, she's playing with blocks and chairs. Sometimes she's playing with 30 blocks and like 20 chairs, and then a broomstick, and then why not a plant, and then maybe like, it's so cool to see it, Carrie. It's really, honestly, it really is. It's super cool to see.
Well, thank you. I feel that if I can contribute anything to my time on the earth, facilitating play in other people, then mission accomplished. Do you know, really, like if that's what I'm able to give, then I feel overjoyed, because I do believe that it is divine. I think that's it is an exam. It is a manifestation of and what is divinity. I don't really know, but I do feel like we come closer to it when we play.
Totally.
And I I don't get into these names. It is funny though, because people have asked me this, especially as I've been allowing myself to change more, giving myself permission to really, there are principles and ideas and things that are, I feel that rather than studying like a method, like I did for so long, my explorations are guided by my studies that are primarily in movement science and, functional neurology. I am so interested in that right now. It's just been going deep with it for a while. And so there are things that are sort of guiding principles or ideas, if you will, or inquiries that guide the practice, the explorations. But I do think it's yoga, because it's yoga and.
Totally.
It's yoga and. It's
yoga and.
because it's yoga and dance. It's yoga and movement. It's yoga and bands. It's yoga and because that for me, yoga is integration. It is it began that way for me. That's what I felt. That's what I fell in love with, was the state of mind and being, the shifting states, the way that I actually felt practice could help me change state. do you know?
Yeah.
And create
Yeah.
a state and have the capacity to use my senses of perception and my breath.
Yeah. The awareness.
Yep. And like my physiology, really, like in a, I could say biohack, but it's like yogis have been biohacking for like ever,
Yeah.
they're the original biohackers, I think. And, they are
we
like,
were biohacking before biohacking was cool.
yes, experimenting and exploring and pushing the head and like the edge of things. And like, what is this? The big question, like, what is this? And so and especially, at this point in my life, uh, I feel like giving myself and facilitating, like giving myself permission to learn, which is permission to play, and facilitating that in others. I mean, I don't think anybody really gives another person the permission, but to be a facilitator of that spirit of yes, because then otherwise I think it's very difficult to learn. I think it's very difficult to make mistakes because then we fear doing it wrong. And if we're afraid of doing it wrong, then the game is over.
Right.
you know,
Right. Totally.
the learning is over because we're going to get it wrong if we're going to learn like that, whatever wrong is, you know what I mean? We're going to make a mess. And then we have to, I feel for myself, like leaning a little bit into that mess,
Yeah, it's that permission, when I see you doing the thing and acting silly and exploring and falling and figuring it out, I'm allowed to do the same thing. When you see whatever you call the leader or the teacher or the person that's in the seat of facilitating role, doing the thing, even when they say, even the subtle reminders of hey everyone, permission to do the thing, like even that it's so disarming. It's so disarming that it gives you, man, we are adults and we go to yoga and we're winning first place, Carrie. Like, I don't know about you, but I am gonna get first place. I'm a fucking teacher and I go into class and I'm like, and I see people doing handstands in the front and I'm in the back doing my thing and I'm like, oh, I gotta do handstand now. Like, no.
Right.
But permission to be human and to do that and to have that conversation and have that permission to play, to remember that you're just because you're these many years older and because your body has shifted and changed, it doesn't mean that you should eradicate the sense of, the joy of like, my arm does this. Whoa, I can pretend to be this. Yep. Oh my gosh, if I turn this way, like that we almost lost that joy and we made it a thing that we had to achieve.
I know, and we practiced a lot of no's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like, did you ever see or read it's a trilogy of books, and then they turned it into, I think it was on HBO. They did the first season of the His Dark Materials, and it was like The Golden Compass was the book that was like the first in the trilogy.
Oh, right. I saw the video. I saw the movie. I never read the books.
They made a movie and that like botched it like big time, totally missed the point, And then in the series, that was a more accurate depiction of the story. And what happens in the story is that these, in this other world, right? These children are, everyone has a daemon, like all the people have a demon. Yeah. I don't say daemon because it's like spelled that way, but I know probably the proper pronunciation is demon, but like an animal,
protects them.
Yeah. Part of you really, it's like you, it's like this external, it's like your spirit outside of yourself. It's like your creativity, your essence outside of yourself, that creative essence. And as children, like that, whatever that form is, it doesn't settle in the story. It doesn't settle on its final form until like adolescence or something, when they're really entering into adulthood. And then that, like, it's like that personality sort of settles. But childhood is this time when their demon is like constantly shifting forms. And what happens in the story is that the magisterium, which is basically just a substitute for the church, for orthodoxy, and they sever, they devise this way in order to control society, to sever the children from their daemon. which is basically they die. They become like this soulless entity. And I think that when we, now I know that's an extreme analogy, but when I was deeply in Iyengar yoga, I was just going, wait a minute. I feel like there were things that were said, behaviors or whatever that were exhibited and replicated, where I thought, oh, this is a process of severing me or severing us, or from that part of us that's going to be creative, that's going to change things, that's going to be a part of a practice evolving, or ourselves evolving. The part of us that will question, like a child will question everything, right? And then why do we stop? Why? Because we've been conditioned to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Very carefully taught, and then until those voices are in us, and we don't allow ourselves anymore, because we basically severed ourselves from that. And I don't feel like that's, that I'm just, speaking metaphorically here, but I do, it did feel like that to me. And the process of sort of reimagining and coming back to rewilding, if you will, or whatever, because it has been extremely joyful and liberating. And there are times when I'm literally like, just feel like I'm pinching myself, when I'm like, why did it take so long to let go?
The doingness versus the being in it, like we're as we got older. Same thing that Nicole Kidman. I don't know why I just thought about it, but Nicole Kidman was the evil woman in the movie.
That wasn't a good movie. You have to watch the HBO series. Watch
it was so terrible.
The movie was horrible because they took all the they sanitized it. They sort of sterilized it and took away the sort of it's dark.
Yeah, for sure.
Really
for sure.
dark. And in a good way.
Similar, like you see the, we're talking about practice, right? So like it becomes a thing that is being done versus a thing that you get to be in. And that being in is that there's no context of having to do it one way or whatever, but just explore it as it shows up.
Totally. I think that's beautifully said, Danny, that it's not a thing to be done.
Right.
It's like, and that's, play is something we do for its own sake. Like it's that it doesn't mean that it doesn't have benefits. It has tremendous benefits for our brain and for our body and for our relationships. But it is something it's something we do for its own sake. It doesn't have to, there doesn't need to be this reason. It's like, why do we listen to music? Why do we do a lot of things that are so deeply, innately joyful and rewarding, but there's no like outcome? Like we don't make there's nothing to really show for the experience, but we had an experience, and that experience is enough. That experience, like having the experience is fulfilling. And then the practice is, let me have an experience again, because it's when we do that, the learning that happens, the integration, the changes in state, in physiology, in brain. I mean, I really do feel like the brain is the big beneficiary here. And of course our, heart, not just the thing that's beating in our chest. And, but it is that thing that we do for its own sake. And that it may be that when you were doing Ashtanga, when I was more deeply in Iyengar, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, but it was about a whole lot of other stuff. It really was. It was about a whole lot of other stuff.
But the other stuff takes it away. It's like there's so much involvement that it takes it away. I feel that for sure.
Oh yeah, because some of that stuff was like, don't do this, don't do that. No, like, I mean, I can even remember people saying this, like not just one person, but saying, why do you feel, not me personally, but like, why does one feel, or anyone who's practicing, that they need to be creative? I mean, but Guruji did it all for us. And I'm thinking, that's a freaking drag, man, that they did it. Like, he did it all for us. It doesn't make any sense. The learning and the exploration is something that we all have to do for ourselves. Like,
that's the inquiry.
yeah, like it's like somebody's robbing you of this incredible process that will, I mean, that is the practice. It's nothing more than the process. So how could one say, he already did that, so you don't have to? And you're like, well, then what is practice? What is the point? The point is the process. To me, it's like, that's because that's really all it ever is. you know, there's
Totally.
there's no, the end, the means is the end. It is. And we don't have to, maybe if we're going for certificates or whatever, then that it becomes about that. And that is, or our identity is so wrapped up in something, because that's a part of it too. It's like, we have someone is an Ashtanga teacher, or a Pilates teacher, or a, whatever, however or a physical therapist, or however we're defining ourselves. And then that becomes the thing that limits our capacity to really do, to really give. Because we've put ourselves in our own straitjacket.
You offer so much out there, Carrie. I know I mean, take a look at your Instagram. Anyone, if you haven't looked at Carrie's Instagram, I don't know what you're doing with your time, but do it. It's fun. One, two. I also know that you have created a playground, per se. It's an online playground. It's called Playground.
It is. It's called The Playground, and it was something I was working on because I travel, or have been. Rocky and I would talk about that. This like gypsy lifestyle. So I was really traveling all over the world for a while, a few years, and it just. I wanted to be home more. I love teaching internationally. It's opened my mind in so many ways. I think it's such a powerful thing, and I've learned so much and met so many incredible people, and will continue to do it if and when that becomes possible again. But I was doing it more than I wanted to, and I thought, well, let me create something so that I can stay connected to the people that are meeting through the work, but cut back a bit, right? So and just be in New York more, because I love New York. And so I was working on it, and then when COVID hit, and I was still in Australia at that time, but I came back, and I just said I have this creative partner who works on it with me, and I was like, let's just pedal to the metal on this, and just get it out there, even if it's not what released when we wanted to, and not in the form that we wanted it to be in. But let's let this thing, let's give it, because I think people need play, probably now more than ever, right? So we put it out. It's this virtual library of classes, live classes, recorded classes, all types of things, like all the explorations and ongoing learning that is my passion, and all through the medium of playful practice, smart playful practice. So it's not just random play, although I think that random play is great. But there's it's purposeful. It's purposeful play, but there's a whole lot of play, and that's really the point of it, is to explore the idea that we can have deliberate practice and play, that they can, swim together. In fact,
they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah.
And it's that they in fact really serve each other, and can mesh in ways that I think any time that we're really deeply absorbed in a learning process, that it doesn't feel like work, right, Danny? Like when you're doing something you love, like even if it's hard and challenging, and you have to really, dial in your focus and decide not to do a bunch of things that you maybe would want to do because you really care about this thing you're doing, but it doesn't feel like work because there's a part of us that just has become one with the thing that we're creating and sharing, and the playground is like, I just always, I don't say always, but a while ago I just started to imagine what would that be like what if, how might we create this sort of virtual space for the kind of playful practice where it is about saying yes to inquiry. It is about like, oh, let's try this, and let's see what happens, instead of, oh, you're not supposed to use a kettlebell if you're a yogi, or like, or tie yourself up with bands or whatever the thing is, or start singing in the middle of the practice, which I think is very powerful.
I agree.
So, like that, because that's, I find when I've taught around the world that when people are playing together, there's just nothing like it, and when they give themselves permission to enter into what would just be described as a play state. Mm-hmm. And that play state, it's like a flow state, but maybe a little different. I don't know, but and I'm trying to learn about that for my writing of this project. Yeah. But it is a state of mind, and I think that humans know this, and that for the practice to be really sustainable over time, to help us in becoming kinder people, like when we're not practicing, just more, just able to smile more, because that makes a difference when we put other humans at ease.
And connection.
Absolutely. Like you look someone in the eye, and the way that, that's like when you watch animals play, they are connected, right? You're like, I love in New York, people walk their dogs, and like certain time of day, all the dogs are out for their walks, like different times. I also like to walk in the evening because you see the dogs out for their last round of peeing or whatever. And then when the dogs see each other, and how they dive into that play state, and you see their movement changes and the way and it is about connection. It's totally connection. And they're on a frequency. It's like there's this play frequency.
Yeah, totally.
They're like they've attuned their little doggy radios, and they're like, we're on the same frequency, And then sometimes they're not. Like sometimes you're like, oh, those two dogs, they're not on the same frequency.
Right.
This one doesn't want to play. And then it's like, you know what? They don't want to play. You can't force it,
On today's episode, Play with Dogs by Carrie Owerko. Yeah. Oh, Carrie, I really am glad that I get to have this conversation with you, and your excitement is, I mean, you guys, don't stop wasting your time. Go to Instagram right now and go see Carrie's Instagram, because you can see your excitement when you do the thing, but I can hear it in your voice. Like you love it. And that's so great. Like you're bringing play to people's, like your play. That's, I don't know. It's just the coolest thing ever.
Oh, thank you. Well, for a long time, I put a lid on that, and and I was unhappy. There was a period of time when I was definitely unhappy. And I think it impacted my relationships adversely, because I wasn't allowing myself to tap, like I was severed from my daemon or whatever. Like I was severed. I severed myself. I don't want to put the blame on anybody else. I let it happen. Right. And I can look back on that, and I knew that I was like, this is not good. But I think moving, looking at all the reasons why we stay in the situations that we stay in when we know that they're not healthy for us. It's a process because it's complicated.
I agree. Oh, Carrie, thanks again for taking time out and hanging with me today and having this conversation and not having jackhammers in the background.
I look forward to meeting you some point, because I just love Rocky. Like, I think he is just one of the most amazing humans. And I know you two are buddies, and it will be
He's
fun.
okay. I mean, he's all right. I wouldn't say he's like the most amazing.
He is so, like, I love his Instagram. Oh, he pushes the edge, doesn't he? In like a
He,
really good way.
there are a lot of fucks that Rocky does not give about, and I love that because he's having just this human experience, and you take it.
Exactly.
You
Like
know?
I look at that and I'm like, that it just I don't know, it just makes me smile. That's all I can say is I see myself just smiling because it's like, wow, look at the yes there.
Yeah. He's a good. We'll keep her.
Yeah.
We'll keep him around.
Are you in the Bay Area or are you in LA?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay.
Yep. Well, I think this is. I think we got it, Carrie. I think. I think till the next Yogi Misfit sessions. This is Danny and Carrie saying peace out. Yeah, Carrie.
Yeah. One thing. Can I throw one thing out there?
Yeah, 100%.
If anybody wants to try the playground, I will give them a discount on a subscription if they want.
Oh, perfect.
For your listeners.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Great.
That would be great. Carrie, thank you. That's very sweet.
And thank you for inviting me on your show. This was really fun, and I just want to get to know you and like have connection physically when we're allowed to do that.
Soon, I hope. Like, same.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But seriously, thank you, and thank everybody for listening. And I would just love to have anybody that wants to give it a try. We just love to have you, and you can always like cancel it anytime, so it's all good.
I'll make sure I put the link in the show notes for sure. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome, Danny. Enjoy the rest of your day.